Hello again, this is John Burroughs, and I'm going to be continuing with my autobiography, 7 Years to Life. This will be chapter 48, and the title of the chapter is The Beginning of the End. Paul F. and Leslie Y. moved to Santa Rosa. Georgia and I moved in with her parents until we could find a place to live, which was turning out to be disheartening because we could not afford a neighborhood that made us feel safe. The last thing I wanted to do was live in Georgia's parents' house. Her mother despised me because she could not stand the fact that Georgia had married me. She had a master's degree in philosophy, was working to obtain her doctorate, and I was a freak with a GED. She taught philosophy at a small college called Notre Dame in Belmont, California. She definitely used the time that we lived there to undermine our marriage in any way possible. Her father would usually come home from work, have dinner, then fall asleep on the couch. It was a loveless marriage that created deep-rooted self-esteem problems with their children and eventually culminated in divorce. The one thing that made living there bearable for me was where our living quarters were located. There was a rather large room downstairs located off the garage, and it had its own private entrance in the backyard. The room also had a bathroom. Though I found it tempting to isolate myself, I honestly tried to establish a tolerable relationship with her mother. My only source of income was unemployment at the time, and I told her mother that I was thankful for her kindness while we were struggling to make ends meet. I even tried working as a fuller brush man, and I have to say it takes a special type of person to make a living at that job. I definitely did not last long for me. I had yet to find my true gift as a salesperson, and I started having conversations with Georgia about moving to Santa Rosa because the cost of living was considerably less than that of the Bay Area. Excuse me. I told her I did not want to do it without building up a little savings for emergencies. I knew it would take roughly a year, and I was sure if her mom could handle us living there that long. I told her I was going back to service stations and dealing weed in order to make the move to Santa Rosa as quickly as possible. This meant Georgia would not have much to do when her mom wanted her to pursue an education, and I told Georgia, who happened to be a gifted artist, according to her high school teacher, that going back to school would be a good idea. I know she loved to paint, and actually the circumstances were ideal for her to spend time looking into pursuing art as a career. I said to see what type of classes the College of Notre Dame offered and to take advantage of them, and the obvious perk to the situations that it would make her mother happy. We told her mom about our plans, and almost a year from that day, we moved to Santa Rosa. We again saw a lot of Paul and Leslie. Georgia went to Santa Rosa JC, and I, as usual, found a part-time job at a service station. Of course, Paul and I began dealing weed together again, and with our Bay Area network of suppliers, we were selling some of the highest quality weed that people in Santa Rosa had ever enjoyed. Paul and I were both making a comfortable living, and the future seemed bright. About a year later, Paul and Leslie's relationship fell apart. He moved out and hung around Santa Rosa for another 6 months. All four of us ended up in the Bay Area. Paul and Leslie seemed finished romantically. Georgia and I found a nice little apartment in Redwood City. She went to work at a Hungarian restaurant, and I went to work at 42nd Avenue Shell. It was around this time that Georgia approached me about attending a prestigious art program coming up in the summer. The program was what I considered to be expensive in comparison to our meager joint income, of which a good portion would cease because Georgia would have to leave her job, at least temporarily. It was not my position to say no, especially when she considered it her life's calling. However, I began to have feelings that our relationship was becoming nothing more than good buddies living together. Our romantic relationship had deteriorated from making love to having sex to servicing each other. At that age, hormonal urges needed to be satisfied, and with the love fading, I became saddened because I know the feeling was mutual. Regardless of the instability of our marriage, we decided that the chance to attend the New Mexico program was something that she needed to do. I guess we both put our faith in the saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder, though I already knew it was a bunch of bullshit. I saw the proof of that in my parents' marriage and the fact that I had a Japanese half-brother somewhere. I honestly think that extended absences creates temptations that creates betrayals without guilt. This does not mean our marriage would have lasted if she had not gone to New Mexico. Anyway, she was off to New Mexico and excited about learning different techniques from well-respected art teachers that I knew very little about. In the beginning, everything was fine. She would call me every night and we would have long conversations about the teachers and the benefits she felt she could have not received elsewhere. Soon, the phone calls happened less frequently, about one every 3 days. Then she would call once a week, and our conversations were short and emotionless. She spoke in a guarded whisper and would often end the phone call unexpectedly by saying, "I have to get off now." Undoubtedly, this was of great concern to me, and it took restraint that I did not know I possessed not to force the issue. I almost decided to go out there myself. Excuse me. I decided against the option, that option, because even though there was a lack of feeling evident in her voice now, I did not detect any signs of fear. The day finally arrived when she came home. I was waiting for her at the airport and I had no idea what to expect. When I spotted her approaching me, I was stunned at the change in her appearance. She wore absolutely no makeup and her clothes were extremely loose-fitting, and I did not recognize them as something she owned prior to leaving for New Mexico. She still had her long hair, and sticking out between the strands was a yellow feather earring. She was still easy on the eyes, but seemed to have aged faster than she should have. Many questions raced through my mind, but I felt it would be better asked them when we were alone. She hugged me and kissed me, as if it were more out of duty than the joy of reuniting. We arrived home, she unpacked her things, and came out to the living room where I was sitting. I could see that she noticed the perplexed look on my face, and before I could even begin to address my concerns, she said nervously, "Remain seated. There are so many things I have to tell you, and not all of them are going to be easy on you." She started out her revelation with, "I am not sure that I know what love is. I do know now that I have never felt closer to anyone nearly as close as I feel to you. I was lost and felt oppressed by my mother, and you came along and the relationship had began. I had so much fun getting high with you and was astonished at your thinking of me what you like attitude. Think of me what you like attitude. I don't care. I felt so safe and comfortable with you. I opened up to you, revealing my innermost thoughts, dreams, and fears. I will never forget when you said that if you are willing to succumb to unreasonable oppression, then you are not able to move toward your hopes and dreams confidently. You refuse to let me be afraid of criticism or the unknown. It is because of this journey we have been on that I owe it to you to share some things that have happened recently in the past. Once you hear them, I really hope you will be willing to continue our journey." I remembered thinking to myself that what she had said so far was sincere, but I could detect a distinct lack of confidence in her delivery. She continued, "When Leslie shared an apartment with us, I knew you could sense that our sexual activity lacked passion. I tried to interrupt, but she implored me to let her finish what she had to say before we discussed it. I just wanted to let her know that the lack of passion was not one-sided, and that it was something that we needed to confront just before she left for New Mexico. I remained silent and waited for her to pick up where she left off. "Paul, You are my hero, my imperfect hero, but your intentions regarding helping me with my struggles have always been sincere. You have made me both weep and laugh with joy, and your rage when you are angry has been frightening to say the least, but I always knew you would never physically hurt me. In fact, I think what hurt the most was watching my hero afraid because you were at a complete loss when it came to the ability to stop that rage from overtaking you. As much as I hated it when it happened, I hope you know that I saw your suffering, but felt helpless and did not know how to help you. She was apologizing to me for not being able to help me, when in those unfortunate fits of rage I knew I had hurt her badly. Regardless of how our relationship ended, I will always remember that statement. We might not have been in true love, but in that one sentence I knew that she was one of the best friends I had ever had. I do not think of Georgia often, but when I do, this is what I remember. She recognized that while I was hurting people, I was suffering at the same time. She knew she had drifted away from her original intent, and when she started this talk, and she said, "Back to living with Leslie. I need you to know that I cheated on you with Joe S. Betrayal is a hard thing to reveal to your spouse, and I started to get angry for two reasons. One, I hated that guy, and I was disappointed in Leslie that after all these years, she knew about it and she was supposed to be a close friend. If a close friend can't be honest, then that damages the friendship irreparably. I cheated once again when we lived in Santa Rosa. It was with Steve Maxon. You can believe what you want, but neither time was pleasurable. Also, after about 3 weeks in New Mexico, I moved in with this girl who had a beautiful little cottage she was renting, and I cheated with her. It was a huge mistake because I realized she was crazy, and I moved out 3 days before the program ended and rented a hotel room. I don't know what our future holds. I am once again lost and afraid, and though I was unfaithful while I was away, I missed you desperately. I want to dedicate my efforts to make our marriage work, and at the same time I do not want to hold you back if you want to move on. I have been with Georgia for close to 8 years, and essentially we had transitioned to adulthood together. I have to admit I was stunned, hurt, and for the first time in my life, in abject fear of the future. Stunned but not surprised, because on that evening I knew that I had seen something like this coming for some time. I think it was a Phil Collins song lyrics that best describe how I was feeling. I can feel something coming in the air tonight. I agree with her, told her that I did not want us to end without putting up a fight. We talked some more, and then fatigue began to overtake us, and I fell asleep with a cautious optimism. I could not help wondering what else had I not been told. My oldest son, Matthew, is in therapy for some things. Since he has been in therapy, he has become remarkably insightful. He is very interested in this book of short stories. In fact, he enjoys hearing me read some of them. He asked me when I completed this one what I had just finished writing about. I told him, though he knew about it in general, but this time he wanted more detail. I told him the best I could all the details without actually reading the story back to him. A light of compassion, but more importantly, understanding my behavior at certain times in the past, and remnants of that same behavior now came through in what he said to me. He said, "I can see how events like that can stay with you throughout your life. I remember you in the mobile home before cell phones, pacing up and down, listening to traffic reports when Mom had not come home from work yet. I remember thinking about how afraid you were. What happened to you in the past caused that fear and unfortunately caused some of your worst moments. We discussed it some more and we both agreed Mom is not Georgia and she would never do that." He went on to say, "I have things that will be with me for the rest of my life, and some of them will always bother me to a certain degree that I am learning to handle better. This will also bother you forever, but you've been able to handle it much better now. You like to have Mom call you somewhat because the fear still is with you, but I have come to notice that more of it comes from a place of concern for her safety. I don't know, but I think she understands that too. What a kid. It makes loving him easy.